Good afternoon, and welcome to A Path to Wellness with Dr. Jackson on rhinoonair.com. Today, we will be talking about purpose, and what else?
Intention.
And intention.
Yeah.
Dr. Jackson?
Okay, so welcome back.
Who is a co-host of yours today?
Yeah, and my co-host is part of our family. I guess I can say his name at this point.
Yes.
His name is Brandon. And Brandon is helping us out on the radio show today. And we'll be talking about purpose. And what I mean by that is, you know, what's behind our intentions and our motivation to do, especially what we do at A Path to Wellness, and why we do what we do and what it's all about. So, you know, it may help to understand what we're trying to accomplish, and obviously what we're trying to accomplish with this radio show as well. So that's what we're about today, and we're also on YouTube at the moment, right? And pardon our technical difficulties getting started if you've been waiting for us.
We have no technical difficulties. We really didn't. We were just behind schedule.
Okay, well, we'll say that. All right, so when we're talking about purpose, why are we doing this? Why have I put myself into this field? Why did I do the work that it took to get into this field of natural functional integrated medicine? And what's it all about? What's the purpose? So the purpose for us, or for myself, but also for the practice, is to help people in a way that they may not be used to. And that is to actually address the underlying causes of what's going on with them physically, not just treating the symptoms. And unfortunately, the majority, and I mean way up in the 90% category of the approach to treating various health conditions, is to treat the symptoms. And basically it's been called a lot a Band-Aid approach and that kind of thing. And I think that's somewhat appropriate. There is more opening going on in the thoughts of integrated medicine and approaching treating people in a broader way. But focusing on the root cause is not so common, you know, and that's partly because conventional medicine is basically the seed of conventional medicine. Allopathic medicine is emergency medicine, you know. Everybody does their rotations in the ER and so on. And it's all about bringing somebody back from a life-threatening condition, perhaps, or an emergency situation like broken bones and these kinds of things. So, you know, the symptoms there would be pain, you know. So approaching the addressing of what's going on currently means dealing with the symptoms. And that makes sense in an emergency situation. So where we run into trouble, I think, in the application of this medicine, and I'm talking about allopathic or conventional medicine, is in the treatment of chronic conditions. Because treating chronic conditions with the same toxic substances, and they are, I mean, the majority of the pharmaceuticals are essentially poisons that are tailored to specific applications. And doing that long-term obviously can damage your body. And even over-the-counter, non-prescription drugs are causing some serious problems, such as, you know, NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, like Tylenol, Advil, all of these kinds of things. You know, we see those being used and overused. And one of the problems we see in that area, and we have thousands of people every year dying from this, you know, and that is the use of Advil, Motrin, Tylenol, Aleve, all of those, and overuse of them. You know, we have people not just taking them for pain, but taking them for a fever, or taking them for, well, this is not a bad application, but taking them for, you know, a cold. It's wrong application, and I have some personal experience. I've seen this being done. So when we look at the use of them and the overuse of them, it becomes a problem. And then coupling that with alcohol quite often can make it even worse. So we see liver damage and other damage to the intestinal tract and so on. So that's even over the counter. That's not even prescription. So, all right. So the purpose behind the approach at Apatha Wellness is to dig for and really try to find through blood work, other kinds of testing we do, diagnostic testing, what is the underlying cause? Why is this person experiencing all of this? And sometimes that takes quite a bit more time and effort. And that's probably part of why conventional medicine hasn't adopted this approach, because it does take more time and effort, and that means costly, right? In terms of time and effort, and possibly even monetarily, you know. Now, does that mean that the cost is always high for the patient? Of course not. But it certainly does have more effort associated with getting to the root cause. It's not a simple visit where you go see the doctor and you're in there, you know, okay, what's going on? All right. So anything else? All right, here's your prescription, see it. You know, 2-minute visit, maybe not even with the actual physician, maybe with somebody else. And this is kind of the way the revolving door of conventional medicine is working nowadays. And at Apatha Wellness, our shortest visit, at least currently, is a half-hour visit. So you're meeting with myself one-on-one, generally, to go over the situation. Now, we may adapt that a little bit further in different situations, but I take it back. The shortest visit is 20 minutes if that's just right into treatment and we're not doing any vitals or any of that sort of thing. But that is when somebody is already on their treatment path and it's a quick visit. Generally, it's a lot more time than you'll spend in the conventional route.
I do want to ask something.
Sure.
When you do your 30-minute little mini visit, if you would like to call it like that, what exactly do you go over?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. All right. So, well, one of the things is we check vitals, okay? And that is to give myself an indication of how somebody's doing metabolically, how they are doing as far as blood pressure is concerned, if there's an issue there, whether it be low or high blood pressure, and what their temperature runs gives me an idea of their metabolism as well, and their heart rate, looking at heart and respiratory rate, these kinds of things, just to see how they are doing biologically, physiologically.
Okay.
That's one of the things, but that's a very small part of it, but it's an important part. The other thing is we're delving into what's going on with them, what signs and symptoms they're experiencing, and correlating those with what their complaints may be, their chief complaint. Like if, you know, they have a lot of headaches, or if they have a lot of cramping or bloating or whatever the case may be. So figuring out how that ties together and what common characteristics there are to those situations to understand where that root cause may be.
Okay.
Okay. And, you know, early in practice, years ago, about a decade ago, I was actually practicing. I didn't do as much blood work and other diagnostic testing as I do now, because I would run a lot on symptomatology because of how much can be derived from what the signs and symptoms are.
Okay.
So it's a pretty thorough visit. Even the half-hour visit is very thorough to get to the root cause. That's what the focus is.
Okay. I'm also wondering, what is your longest visit like?
The longest visit is an hour and a half. That's the first generally the first visit, although a first visit can be a consultation. And then we kind of apply part of that knowledge to the intake. And also that piece of the cost is taken out to go to the rest of the intake. But an hour and a half going over the complete health history.
Okay.
That's usually like the first or second visit.
Okay.
And understanding thoroughly what ties everything together and what, it may not be everything, it may be part of the puzzle. There may be several things that have different components to them that are tied together that have an underlying cause that they have in common.
Okay.
But understanding that. So,
Okay.
and then of course all the vitals and other things are brought into play in that. And then usually in that visit, what we do is we write up some lab work, whether it be blood work, hair analysis, saliva testing, whatever it may be, to understand more about what's going on physiologically.
Okay.
Could even be referral for a thermogram if it's to do with an inflammatory condition like a breast condition or the spinal column or something like that. So.
But I do want to ask you something.
Okay.
What was your intention when you first came into the business?
What was my intention? My intention was to save the world. Well, you know, my intention was really to help people thoroughly really get to the root cause of what the situation was for people, you know, in health conditions, and to really get to the core. And, you know, here's the situation with this practice. When we practice in a way where we are actually focusing on the underlying cause of a condition, and then we start actually treating the underlying cause, people get better. They become more healthy and happy and well. So what is the problem with that? Well, if it's seen as a practice and the business side of a practice, to do that is really to shoot yourself in the foot, because you're actually helping people to the point where they get better and then they don't need to come see you. Well, that's fine with me, because I want, you know, if they check in once we're to that point, and they're checking in every 6 months or so, just for a regular check, just to make sure they're still on track, that's fine, because the purpose and the intention is to truly help people. And you'll see that that's quite often a different situation with the conventional route that conventional medicine is going with in this country, in the United States. So.
Yeah, and I think conventional medicine is kind of messing with people's heads, because I've mentioned to someone that you've been able to extend that little tail at the end of your DNA.
Called the telomeres, yeah.
The telomeres. No one believed me.
Really?
Literally, no one. They thought I was just joking with them, and I was like, no, I'm serious. And then they're like, oh, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about there is anti-aging medicine.
Yeah. But I'm talking about the natural route. And they're like, no. That stuff will never work. Kind of deal.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of studies that prove otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's to do with anti-aging. Telomeres are basically a tail on the bottom of the DNA, or at the end of the DNA, that's used to help it reproduce and reproduce cells. And that tail is base material that's used to create the DNA each time. And as it shrinks, eventually repetitively, after a certain number of repetitions, the material runs out, and that's when you get what's called apoptosis, or programmed cell death, to where the cell dies. And then you start getting cell death in various organs and different places in the body. That's part of the aging process that we have conventionally accepted as just a process and part of life. My practice doesn't really just accept that. Aging, to me, is a syndrome. And what we have accepted as aging is actually, to me, a form of a disease. It's just an unsolved disease for us. And I think we're getting very close to In fact, we've already started to solve that disease, but not completely. But in terms of, like, we're not looking at immortality. What we're looking at is a better quality of life while you're around, so it may be, you're 160 and you're doing great, and you're doing your 10-mile run every day, and you're climbing mountains and riding your bike and at the Iditarod and all this stuff, and then you walk in front of a bus and you're gone, but you've enjoyed your life until then. That kind of thing. So, boy, that's one possible scenario anyway. But the idea is to live a much better quality of life, live the life that is lived by a young person throughout your life. And this picture that we have sort of accepted in Western society anyway, as this older person with a cane walking down the sidewalk, hobbling along and all hunched over and all this kind of stuff.
To get off their lawn.
All that sort of thing, is it's a picture we've come to accept as a culture, but there are many cultures where it's the 65-year-olds that outrun the 20-year-olds. They accept that. That's just normal. That's expected. That people live much longer lives. Like if you look at the Okinawans, for example, they live into their hundreds very often, and looking at how they do that, how they accomplish that. What is it in their food that makes that different for them? What is it in their environment, in their lifestyle? All of these things have effects. I think you were mentioning one of the people, I can't remember his name, but he's very prominent, doing some research in stress's effects on the human body and so on. He's been researching it in primates, right? Okay. Remember him? I can't remember his name right now, but he's pretty well known in that field. Well, that affects us. Stress affects our bodies. In fact, the AMA long ago said that 80 to 85% of disease was actually caused by stress. And that's a true statement. I mean, from my experience, a lot of diseases can actually be triggered or caused by stress. Diabetes is one, believe it or not. Diabetes can be caused by a stressful condition over and over again because of things like elevating glucocorticoids, which means that the cortisol is also attached to glucose molecules, and the sugar is therefore rising when the glucocorticoids rise. So stress can have responses like that can change your blood sugar levels, and if it happens over and over again, you finally build in over time an insulin resistance, and that's going to lead to diabetes. So there's all sorts of different situations that, metabolic syndrome is also one that can be affected in a similar way, and that includes things like hypertension or high blood pressure, diabetes or sugar glucose regulation issues, elevated cholesterol, and that has a lot to do with the damage that's done by stress in the body, in the blood vessels, and so on, and so on. So there's so many interrelated underlying causes that are involved in this. And as I said, that's what we're focused on at A Path to Wellness, is trying to figure out the underlying causes of disorders. Now, sometimes that just goes to another area entirely, and that is things like nutrition. If somebody is low on energy or has poor energy, they may have an issue where they're low on B12, or low on vitamin D, or low on iron, or maybe all of the above, or even ferritin. Their reserves aren't good, so they can't replenish the iron when they lose iron. Like, for example, a menstruating woman who loses a lot of iron in her period because she's losing a lot of blood, then that can be an issue there. Iron can be a problem. Well, also, what about that heavy flow? We need to deal with that too, see? So that's an underlying cause as well. And we've got to figure out, well, what's the cause of that? Well, the underlying cause of that may be a hormonal misdistribution or a hormonal imbalance. And then we figure out that hormonal imbalance and we get things corrected. So that keeps the flow down. Therefore, she's losing less iron, and then we prop up the iron in other ways. And we just balance the whole situation.
Okay.
So, did I answer your question?
I think you did.
All right. So, you've been around my practice enough, and you've seen enough. What have you noticed or observed?
I've noticed that you've been able to help people a lot. You were able to even help me get off that crappy stuff that they were giving me for my ADHD, where it would increase my heart rate. It was supposed to make me pay attention. I was zoning out. I think they were just trying to make this so they can do this.
Make money so they can do what?
Make it rain.
Make it rain.
That's what this means, make it rain.
Okay, okay. He's using ASL here with me, and I don't know enough ASL, so.
Well, but he has very valid points.
Yeah. So, you know, I guess it's a good time to mention that we're not trying to treat, cure, prevent disease on this show. We're discussing some underlying issues with and maybe problems with how things are working, and part of why there is a niche for a practice like mine to help people in ways that they've never experienced before. I mean, I get so many people coming to me. They're frustrated with their current situation, who they're seeing, you know, physicians or whoever they may be seeing, ARMPs or nurse practitioners, or even PAs at times, which means physician assistant. Some of the practices are relying a lot on the support people instead of you dealing one-on-one with the physician. There's a lot of situations, a lot of reasons for these issues and why people are coming to me. And a lot of them just want to go a more natural route, and they don't want to be filled up with drugs. You know, synthetic chemicals or drugs have a lot of side effects. And one of the reasons that they have all these side effects is because in a lot of cases, the drug is a derivative of a plant substance. And what happens in the plant is there's a balancing effect you have. Yes, you have the active elements that are there, but you also have some peripheral elements that help to complement or synergize the effect so that you get a more balanced response when, say, consuming the plant or however you might get it, you know, as a tea or whatever. Well, and, you know, those are the kinds of substances that we use in the practice, you know, herbal medicine. You know, a lot of people confuse homeopathy, so I'll explain. That's more of a microdosing approach. But there's the plant substances as herbal tinctures or capsules or different types of things. There's the nutritional approach. And when I talk about nutrition, I'm not talking over-the-counter nutrition. We don't use over-the-counter nutrition typically in my practice. We use nutraceuticals. The difference is nutraceuticals are essentially characterized pharmaceutically so that we understand better the thorough nature of them in terms of what is available to your body. You know, what is the bioavailability of the substance? How much of it you actually get when you take this nutraceutical, and we see much quicker and more effective results. You know, it's more efficacious. So, you know, the approach that I'm looking for generally in my practice is the most effective approach to getting a solution. You know, if you've been going to various practitioners of various kinds and you haven't gotten the results that you're looking for, and you're still going in there with the same complaints, and, you know, basically they eventually respond maybe by writing you a Prozac prescription or something like that because they're tired of hearing you and they think that you're just full of it or you're just depressed or something. You know, we're not going to blow you off. We're going to listen. We're going to try and understand what's going on. And we're going to try and find a route to getting to the core of what actually is going on. And then we're going to approach treatment based on that. So it's basically your body and your signs and symptoms telling us, along with diagnostic testing, to both verify and to uncover issues that can be deficiencies or excesses in various areas. You know, it can be metabolic, it can be issues with, you know, I've had people come in various stages of kidney failure, okay, and it hasn't been picked up. And they've come in and I've seen it on their blood work, and it's like, they didn't talk to you about this? You know, or liver issues where liver enzymes are elevated, or, you know, blood sugar regulation issues, all these kinds of things. And sometimes those things are not picked up. Or if it's right on the edge, in other words, in the subclinical realm, where it's right on the edge of normal levels, okay? And quite often, even that is not exactly where they go. Like, for example, the Endocrinology Society, whatever the correct term is there, back in, I think, 2003, came up with new standards for a test known as TSH. Okay, first of all, TSH is not a good test. And yet 90 to 95 or more % of conventional medicine practices by using TSH as the primary test to screen for thyroid disorders. The result, we are missing probably 30 million or more thyroid afflicted individuals in this country. A lot of people are falling through the cracks because the right testing is not being done. Okay, but aside from that, even if you look at TSH and say it does have some validity, not as much as it is given. Right? In other words, not what's attributed to it. And what I'm talking about here, by the way, is very well supported in studies. Okay, I'm not making this stuff up. It's not even just my clinical experience, although that's certainly part of it. But the studies are definitely showing what I'm saying is true. Okay, and TSH, even so, when you look at lab reports, quite often the range that's reported on the lab is way outside the range and way wider and too large a range to even make it useful. And the Endocrinology Society kind of figured this out and came out with new standards in 2003. Well, those standards are not on a lot of the lab work. So the ranges on the lab results may be way out of sync with current knowledge, okay? So there's a lot of factors involved there that, you know, yeah, they take a lot of experience and understanding and knowledge and understanding of the research and all of these kinds of things. Anyway, I'm going on a bit. So I think you can understand our intention here and our purpose is to get to the core of what's going on. We get results. We get great results. We help people in ways they've never seen. Okay, and you know, I think Brandon can back that up. A lot of people that we've had in the office can back that up. We get results that are quite often phenomenal. I'll give you another. Well, I've talked about several of them on the show before. But even when we get into areas like fertility, you know, we've seen some results that are just downright amazing. And, you know, couples turned around in very short time to where we have them pregnant, you know. And these are people who have been trying to have a baby for years and have been getting nowhere. So, you know, when we're talking about, say, let's get out of the fertility for a bit and talk about women's health. For example, all of the signs and symptoms that are experienced during menstruation, you know, that come with women with the cramping, bloating, you know, all of those types of things that go on, right? All of those fun signs and symptoms that women tend to kind of share with each other. Oh yeah, I'm experiencing, oh, it's a rough month. Yeah, I know it. I'm having a hard time, etc. But it's normal. But it's not normal. That means you have a hormonal imbalance. Now, unfortunately, there's no real decent way conventionally to approach that? Well, in the approach that we take at A Path to Wellness, it's a natural approach, works with your body, and most of those things, if not all, can be diminished, if not eliminated. So, you know, because basically what we do is we help bring back your hormonal balance. That's the key. So all of these various areas were focused on the underlying causes, not just the symptoms. And this can go, there's so many different areas. And you know, I continue to personally pursue further education. Why? Not because I need to. You know, I've got plenty already, and I've got, you know, the practice is already geared toward what I do, focusing on the cause and really addressing the underlying issues. But part of my interest and my purpose in continuing to pursue further education is to help to expand the integration of medicine, to help to bring together natural with conventional medicine. And it may sound at times like I'm bashing conventional medicine. No, I'm not really bashing conventional medicine. I'm just stating that these are the strengths. Like I said, emergency medicine is definitely a strength of conventional medicine. But when it comes to chronic care, there's some serious problems. When you're using drugs to treat somebody for years and years and years, that's a problem.
And that's something that he mentioned that you may want to adjust a little more. He was on medication. They gave
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So that would be, and being a a young man as he is, 14-year-old.
Yeah. So you were on. What was it that you?
I don't remember.
Was it something along the lines of Ritalin, right?
I think it was something like that.
Yeah. And so you were
I
on
had
that.
to take, I think it was like 2 types of medications though.
Yeah.
I had to take 1 in the morning
ADHD.
and 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah. Right.
They would cause, for a while they were okay, they helped, but eventually my mom started noticing my heart rate going up.
Mm-hmm.
My heart rate going up, I started losing, my teachers were noticing I was starting to lose focus.
Mm-hmm. Losing weight too.
Yeah, a little bit of weight, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and so, you know, obviously that drug was not treating the underlying cause of your condition.
Yeah.
And there's even some debate about that whole condition, but, you know, going a more natural route, trying to replenish some of your depleted nutrients, things like that, getting you more nutritionally balanced and helping you with other things that help to change your metabolism and your demeanor. That was part of it as well.
Okay.
So that's getting to the underlying cause, again, trying to get to the core of why you're having these issues. And that's the purpose. So, you know, I kind of joke about, well, to save the world. Well, I think that natural medicine is essentially on a path to save the world medically in a lot of ways. Now, a lot of people think that conventional medicine is there, you know, because conventional medicine has all this fancy technology and so on. And so, you know, that's great, you know, except that we're also, if you look at the United States, we're the most medically radiated society on the face of the earth. So radiation is a problem. Over radiation, over exposure to radiation, especially ionizing radiation, is a big issue in the United States. And so we have this overuse or this reflex to things like CT, X-rays, etc., when there are less damaging technologies available that may actually provide more information, like MRI. Yes, MRI has some issues. It changes spin on molecules, and it takes a while before your body gets back to normal and that kind of thing. But you're exposed to radio frequency ranges, which are non-ionizing radiation, as opposed to ionizing radiation like X-rays, gamma rays, you know, these kinds of things. And
yeah. but I personally had an MRI once.
Mhm.
The machines are noisy, and to a little kid who needs one, it might be scary.
Uh-huh.
So parents,
Maybe closed MRI especially.
yeah, those kind of ones, they're scary to the kids if no parents are there. And even with the parents, the noise scares them.
Mhm.
So parents are like, no wonder why they were screaming. Your stupid machine scared my kid.
Yeah.
I want a different one. I want them to have a CAT scan or
Yeah.
something like that.
And yet that's the worst of the two choices
Yeah, and I've
because of the
had
radiation.
both a CAT scan and an MRI.
That explains
scan-
a lot. Okay.
CAT scans are quick and easy, but as I learned, they were radiated.
Yeah.
And they have to literally, if the kid doesn't have an IV in their arm, they have to inject an IV just so they can get the medicine in
Yeah,
there.
or you may be talking about a PET scan as well. Well, yeah, so you're looking at X radiation. Sometimes you're looking at nuclear medicine being used or other forms of medicine that are giving contrast in the image, that kind of thing. But the main issue, I would say, is the ionizing radiation and getting too much of it. And many times, like for example, you see a dentist, you get your full mouth x-ray. The ADA, the American Dental Association, the guidelines on that are every 5 to 7 years for a full mouth x-ray. There are people who are switching dentists once a year and every one of them says, oh, we got to do a full mouth x-ray. So that's an example of over radiating. Then they suggest, oh, okay, you've got to go for your mammogram. So there's some more. And then, oh, okay, you have a crick in your neck. Okay, let's put you through some x-rays for your neck. And so on and so on, you know. And CT, you know, if you get a kidney stone, we got to do a CT. And so this accumulation of all of this radiation is a serious issue. And unfortunately, on an individual basis, each one of those is kind of diminished in terms of the way that it's looked at, you know, as being such a small amount. Well, as you accumulate this over time, there is a certain load factor. There's a certain amount of radiation your body can tolerate. And each time you add more to it, you are heading toward basically 100% chance of cancer. And that's from early studies, if you want to look that up. I'll have to look up the names though. But that's the direction we're going with ionizing radiation. We're getting too much of it. And there are alternative technologies. There's the MRI, which is great. You know, ultrasound can be used to find cancer. You don't have to have a mammogram. Mammogram is an option. But mammogram has its deficits. Like, for example, mammogram just looks at anatomy. Going further than that, looks at anatomy, but what if you have, okay, say, dense breast tissue? The likelihood of a mammogram being accurate is very diminished with dense breast tissue. It's like in the 40% range, something like that. So, especially for people with dense breast tissue, alternatives look very positive, like thermography. Thermography has a very good chance of finding physiologically, not anatomically, something that may be leading to an inflammatory condition that leads to cancer. And you can find that 5 to 10 years sooner down the line. So in other words, you can do more early detection. And that's what is often stated as the goal with mammography, is early detection. Well, early detection means, with mammograms, means you have something if it's detected. It's already there. With thermography, the processes are taking place that lead to the cancer, but there may not be cancer yet. And you can catch that earlier because of the patterns that are detected using thermography, which means the heat coming from the body as opposed to actually radiating the body with x-rays, which is what mammograms are all about. And there's no clamping down, there's none of this, you know, putting a breast in a clamp. so that it's much less painful and intrusive. It's just looking at the heat coming off of your body and looking for certain patterns, and looking for a differential in terms of temperature to look for suspicious areas. And then if you need to, if it's suspicious enough, you follow up with an ultrasound. You know where you're looking, so you don't need the guidance of another tool. And then you can look closely at that. And ultrasounds are very good at differentiating between masses and cysts, for example. It's very obvious, the difference on an ultrasound. So that can be a good detection tool as well as a follow-up to either one of those techniques. Mammograms might be of use occasionally, but to repeatedly radiate on a regular basis, it's silly when there are other technologies available, in my opinion. So, but that's also another example of getting to the root cause, because when you're looking thermographically at a woman's chest, you're seeing the blood flow patterns that lead to fueling the development of cancer potentially. Okay, you can see those patterns early on. Look at it physiologically and look at differentials, and you can look at it over time. Longitudinal studies, like doing regular thermograms, makes sense even on a yearly basis. Whereas doing mammography on a yearly basis is like you're essentially starting to create what you're looking for, because you're radiating each time, and that causes DNA damage. It can actually cause mutations to develop, these kinds of things. So thermography actually gives you some insight into root cause, into the development of the cancer, because you're looking at the physiological processes taking place in the body, on the surface at least. Okay, so insight into root cause. What are we looking for? We're looking for physiological patterns. We're looking for signs and symptoms. We're looking for diagnostic results like nutritional deficiencies or excesses. Now, nutritional deficiencies are fairly simple. We look at, quite often, blood work. Look at vitamin B levels, folate, things like that. We look at vitamin D levels, look at iron and ferritin and saturation of iron levels. We look at these kinds of things. We look at mineral levels, magnesium, calcium, and so on. And that can be indicative of other processes going on. So all of those things are indicators of what is going on underneath that we can use to figure out how to correct a situation. We can do hair analyses and look at what's in the hair that comes from the tissues, so you can see if there's mercury, there's lead, there's cadmium, there's aluminum in that area. Look at nutritional or mineral imbalances. There may be imbalances of zinc and copper. There may be imbalances of magnesium, calcium. There may be imbalances of selenium and zinc, or something along those lines. Each of those indicates something, not only nutritionally or mineral-wise in terms of the balance of nutrients, but also proportionally, if they're out of kilter, they can be indicative of things going on in the body. Like when you have zinc to copper ratios elevated, that can be indicating that the thyroid function may be affected by those zinc and copper levels. And elevating zinc can lead to elevated thyroid. And zinc is an important mineral in the breakdown of thyroid hormone from T4 to T3, which is the active hormone. And so is selenium. Selenium is important in that process. In fact, one of the key enzymes there is a selenoenzyme that helps with the breakdown of T4 to T3. So mineral levels matter because they affect your body's function. They can be at the root of physiological conditions. Just your diet and not getting certain nutrients can leave you with deficiencies that lead to physiological disorders. Everybody's familiar with scurvy, right? That's like the universal, everybody hears about it, knows about it. You hear about it in elementary school, right? The whole limey thing, where did limey come from? You were talking about the British, on the boats, and that they would have scurvy. And how did they come to be known as limeys? Because they would use limes to alleviate that condition. Well, that's just one example. Our bodies are a delicate balance, and we look at that whole balance. That's the idea behind the approach that we're taking. So truly getting to the root of what's going on physiologically is what I'm talking about. And that is our purpose. And the long term, or the greater purpose is to help as many people as possible become well, and not just to get rid of sickness. It's not about sick care, it's about wellness, and not just a reactive kind of medicine. We're talking about a proactive kind of medicine where we're getting to the root of things and really trying to not only treat, but also to prevent in our approach. And so people become well. That's why we call it a path to wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I know I've been a little verbose today, and we didn't even take a break. So
I guess we're going to break.
we're going to a very long break until next Thursday.
It's already two.
Yeah, so that's the end of the show. So I guess I talked over you a little bit, huh? I didn't give you a lot of opportunities to talk. But you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, not really.
Not really?
Well, you're on spring break. So what are your plans during your spring break for the rest? What do you do?
Probably help them out maybe a little bit in the office.
Yeah.
Any words of wisdom for the young ones in your age group during their spring break, and something healthy, some healthy advice that you could provide?
Got any healthy advice for
Eat at
Yes.
home. Cook your own meals. Stay
you go.
away from McDonald's.
There you go. I like
Good
it.
for you.
Stay away from the fast food. That's a good one. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just don't cram. Don't think, let me make a bologna sandwich. Make sure that bologna's good. And don't grab your face full of cake.
Say no to bologna.
No, the bologna. Forget the bologna. Okay.
You're really good.
Okay. He's getting a little goofy here. So.
Sorry.
Goofy's good that time.
So anyway, thanks for listening. You've been listening to A Path to Wellness on WSPF-DB-DB.com. It's for St. Pete, Florida, right? WSPF. And rhinoonair.com. And if you'd like to get a hold of us at A Path to Wellness, you can contact us at 727-329-9637. You can also take a look at the website. Where's the website?
www.aptw.net, which is short for A Path to Wellness.
Yeah, A Path to Wellness, APTW. Okay. And, I never do get the call-in number, and I rarely remember that, or I'm able to get that in. Would you like
We don't want them to call anyway.
Yeah. We don't want them to call.
I go on Facebook and
Oh, yeah.
post questions.
Okay, you
on
can
your
get on
page.
Facebook and post questions. All right. Which Facebook page would that be?
A Path to Wellness.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we could do that.
Or on
On
rhinoonair.com.
rhinoonair.com would work for the show, I think.
Right.
Right? Okay. So that's RHINOONAIR.com, right?
Literally, Rhino is spelled back here.
Yeah.
If you go,
So let's get the spelling right. But, it's easier if you just use WSPF-DB.com, right? That's WSPF St. Pete, Florida -DB, digitalbroadcasting.com.
You got it.
All righty. So anyway, that's enough of that. See you next time.
peace.